Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and drop a comment below, because today, we're peeling back the layers of a story that will leave you questioning everything. Infidelity. It's a word that sends shivers down the spine, yet it happens more often than people care to admit. The truth? Most affairs don't start in hotel rooms or secret rendezvous. They start in the mind, in the tiny justifications, in the stolen glances that linger a little too long. And that's exactly what happened here. Julia had everything: a stable marriage, a loving husband. But was it enough? What pushes someone to cross the line? Is it boredom? Neglect? Or is it something far more dangerous? The craving for what's forbidden? This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a confession, a cautionary tale, and maybe even a mirror. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you might not just understand why it happened. You might start questioning the very foundation of trust in a relationship. I still remember that evening vividly. The low hum of the kitchen light, the rhythmic chopping of vegetables, and the scent of garlic filling the air. It was just another night, or so I thought. When I heard the front door creak open, I didn't even turn around. "You're home early," I called, assuming it was Ethan. But the silence that followed made my stomach tighten. When I finally turned, I wasn't met with my husband's familiar gaze. Instead, it was Liam, his best friend, standing there, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. There was something unsettling about the way he stood, too still, too composed, like he had rehearsed this moment. "Ethan's not home yet, is he?" His voice was casual, but there was an undercurrent of something else. I forced a polite smile, wiping my hands on a kitchen towel. "No, he's working late again." That was our reality. Ethan always working, always away. Liam tilted his head slightly, his eyes scanning my face like he was reading between the lines of my answer. The tension in the air felt almost tangible, pressing against my skin. Maybe it was the way the dim kitchen lights cast shadows on his face, making his expression seem darker, heavier. Or maybe it was the fact that, in that moment, I realized just how long it had been since someone had really looked at me. Not in passing, not as an afterthought, but really seen me. My instinct was to brush it off, to pretend this was just a normal visit from an old friend. But something in his presence made that impossible. I turned back to the stove, stirring absent-mindedly, trying to shake off the unease creeping up my spine. "Ethan should be back soon," I said, more to fill the silence than anything else. But Liam didn't move. He just lingered, as if waiting for me to acknowledge the unspoken words hanging between us. And for the first time, I found myself wondering, was he here just to check in on me, or was there something more beneath the surface? Liam stayed longer than he should have. At first, it seemed harmless, just an old friend catching up, filling the silence Ethan left behind. But there was something in the way he spoke, the way his words carried weight, that I couldn't ignore. "Ethan's been busy, huh," he said, swirling the drink in his hand, his tone just a bit too knowing. I laughed it off, pretending I didn't notice the implication. But deep down, his words clung to me like a splinter, small yet impossible to ignore. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. The subtle way he pointed out Ethan's absences, the way he hesitated before certain words, like he wanted me to connect the dots myself. "You must get lonely," he added, almost as an afterthought, but it didn't feel like one. I should have shut it down, told him it was none of his business. But instead, I let the words settle, let them take root in a part of me I hadn't acknowledged in a long time. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was just tired, that Liam was just being friendly. But a part of me, The part one wasn't proud of felt seen. It had been months since Ethan and I had shared more than a few rushed words between his work calls. And here was Liam, his eyes holding mine just a second too long, his presence filling the spaces Ethan had left empty. I told myself it was innocent, but was it? I didn't realize it then, but something shifted that night. A door, once locked tight, had been left slightly ajar. I wasn't sure if I was the one who had opened it, or if Liam had nudged it open with his careful words. But either way, I felt it, the unsettling curiosity creeping in, whispering questions I wasn't ready to answer. And as I watched him walk out the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last time he'd linger in my kitchen, planting seeds of doubt I wasn't sure I wanted to grow. At first, I told myself it was just a coincidence, Liam showing up more often, lingering in conversations that stretched longer than they should. But coincidences don't feel this deliberate. Every time he came over, his words danced dangerously close to something unspoken, something forbidden. "You ever wonder if things are supposed to be different?" he asked one evening, his voice smooth, almost casual. I knew better than to ask what he meant, but my silence spoke for me. I should have stopped it. I should have told him that whatever he was implying, whatever game he was playing, it wasn't welcome. But the truth? I didn't hate it. His words felt like an echo of the thoughts I had buried deep. Thoughts about Ethan's distance, about the way I felt more like a ghost in my own marriage than a wife. And Liam? He had a way of making me feel real, like I wasn't just some afterthought lost in Ethan's busy schedule. The worst part was how easy it became to let it happen. I didn't have to seek him out. He was just there, appearing at the right moments, slipping in those forbidden confessions as if he knew exactly what I needed to hear. "You deserve more than this," he murmured one night, his eyes locked onto mine, daring me to believe him. And for a second I did. I let myself imagine a different reality, one where I wasn't waiting for Ethan to notice me, where I wasn't second place to his work. But fantasies have a way of making reality seem dull in comparison. And as much as I told myself this was just harmless conversation, I knew better. Liam wasn't just filling the gaps Ethan left behind. He was pulling me into something I wasn't sure I could resist. And the scariest part? I wasn't even sure I wanted to. That night, the air felt heavier, charged with something neither of us wanted to name. I knew Liam shouldn't be here. Ethan would be home soon, and yet I didn't ask him to leave. We stood too close, our words slower, each glance stretching longer than it should. My pulse quickened when his fingers brushed against mine, a touch so brief, yet so deliberate that it sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't just conversation anymore. This was a line, one we were dangerously close to crossing. I could have stepped back. I could have laughed it off, turned away, reminded myself of the vows I had made. But instead, I stayed frozen, trapped in the intoxicating pull of a moment I knew would change everything. "Tell me to go," Liam murmured, his voice low, almost pleading. But I didn't. I couldn't, because a part of me, one I didn't want to admit existed, wanted this. Wanted the attention, the desire, the thrill of something new, something forbidden. And then, just as his lips hovered inches from mine, we heard it, the unmistakable sound of Ethan's car pulling into the driveway. Reality crashed down like a tidal wave, drowning whatever illusion we had let ourselves believe in. I stumbled back, my breath uneven, my heart pounding against my ribs. Liam's expression shifted in an instant, from longing to something unreadable, something guarded. Whatever spell we had been under shattered in an instant. I turned away, gripping the edge of the counter, as if it could steady the chaos inside me. Liam took a step back, his jaw tightening, his hands shoved into his pockets as if nothing had happened. But we both knew better. Something had happened, something irreversible. And as Ethan's footsteps neared the front door, I realized the real danger wasn't just getting caught. It was knowing that, despite the interruption, this wasn't over. Not yet. Guilt has a way of sinking its claws into you, tightening with every passing day. I told myself that night was a mistake, a moment of weakness, nothing more. But the truth? I wasn't so sure. Liam's presence lingered in my mind, his words replaying like a song I couldn't turn off. I tried to shake it, to focus on Ethan, to remind myself of the life we had built. But the more I tried, the more I saw the cracks that had been there long before Liam ever stepped through that door. I became hyper-aware of myself, of my own movements, my own words. Every smile I gave Ethan felt forced, every conversation rehearsed. Did he notice? Was he watching me the way I suddenly found myself watching him? I analyzed his every glance, his every sigh, searching for some sign that he knew, that he sensed the betrayal lurking beneath the surface. And maybe he did. Maybe that's why his eyes lingered on me longer, why his questions felt heavier. Ethan had always been distant, but now, something had shifted. He was paying attention in a way he hadn't in years. At first, I told myself it was just paranoia, that I was seeing things that weren't there. But then, there were the moments, subtle, but unmistakable. The way he would pause before responding, as if weighing his words. The way he would study me when he thought I wasn't looking. It wasn't just my guilt making me uneasy. Ethan was picking up on something. And yet, the worst part wasn't the fear of getting caught. It was knowing that even if Ethan did suspect, even if he confronted me, I wasn't sure what I would say. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about a single mistake. It was about everything that had led up to it. Years of loneliness, of feeling unseen. And once you've tasted the feeling of being wanted again, it's nearly impossible to forget. So, after everything you've just read, what do you think? Can trust truly be rebuilt after betrayal? Or does it forever leave its mark? Is it possible to forgive, to start over, or are some wounds just too deep? If you're in a relationship, do you feel like you're really seen? Or have you, too, started questioning what's really happening behind closed doors? If today's story hit home for you, now's the time to act. Don't wait until it's too late. If you see the signs, if you feel something shifting, don't ignore it. Relationships are built on trust, but they're sustained by communication. Don't let things fester until the damage is irreversible. And remember, if you want to dive deeper into these topics and start making changes in your own life, subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next, because this conversation is far from over.